Shalom Mishpachah and Havarim, and all who come here for fellowship with Scripture. Today we'll read from Yahudith, the book of Judith, a true believer, a brave and courageous woman, as you'll see or hear. I've included the pronunciation guide and I hope the pages are readable. All praise, all glory, and all esteem to Yahweh Kodesh Elohim. So, get comfortable and let's read. Reading from the Hallelujah Scriptures, Yahudith, Judith. Chapter 1. In the 12th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who reigned in Nineveh, the great city, in the days of Arpachshad, who reigned over the Madites in Ahmetha, and in Ahmetha built walls round about of stones hewn 3 amah wide and 6 amah long, and made the height of the wall 70 amah and the breadth of it 50 amah. Okay, first interjection. An amah is 17.47 inches. So there, you can estimate how big these things are now. Chapter 1 verse 3. And put its towers upon its gates 100 amah high, and its breadth in the foundation 60 amah. And he made its gates, even gates that were raised to the height of 70 amah, and the breadth of them was 40 amah, for the going forth of his mighty armies, and for the formation of his footmen. Also in those days, sovereign Nebuchadnezzar fought against sovereign Arpachshad in the great plain, which is the plain in the borders of Raches, and all those who dwelt in the hill country, and all who dwelt in Parath, came to him, and Hiddekel, and Hudaspes, and the plain of Arioch, the sovereign of the Elamites, and very many nations of the sons of Kasdim assembled themselves to the battle. Then Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Achior, sent to all who dwelt in Paraz, and to all who dwelt westward, and to those who dwelt in Kilikia and Damasek and Lebanon, and opposite Lebanon, and to all who dwelt on the sea coast, and to those among the nations that were of Carmel and Gilead and the higher Galilee and the great valley of Yisrael, and to all that were in Shomeron and its cities, and beyond the Yarden, the Jordan, to Jerusalem, and Beth Anun and Haletz and Kadesh, and the river of Mitzrayim, and Tahpenes, and Raamses, and all the land of Goshen, until you come beyond Soan and Noph, and to all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim, until you come to the borders of Cush. But all the inhabitants of the land disregarded the command of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Ashur, neither went with him to battle, for they were not afraid of him. Indeed, he was before them as one man, and they sent away his ambassadors from them without effect and with shame. Therefore Nebuchadnezzar was very wroth with all this land, and swore by his throne and reign that he would surely be avenged upon all those coasts of Kilikia and Damasek and Aram, and that he would slay all the inhabitants of the land of Moab with the sword, and the children of Ammon, and all Yehudah, and all who were in Mitzrayim, till you come to the borders of the 2 seas. Then he marched in battle array with his strength against sovereign Arpachshad in the 17th year, and he prevailed in his battle for he overthrew all the strength of Arpachshad and all his horsemen and all his chariots, and became master of his cities, and came to Achnether, and took the towers, and plundered its streets, and turned its pleasantness into shame. He also took Arpachshad in the mountains of Rachjes, and smote him through with his arrows, and utterly destroyed him that day. So afterward he returned to Nineveh, both he and all his army of assorted nations, being a very great number of men of battle. And there he took his ease, and feasted, both he and his army, 120 days. Chapter 2. And in the 18th year, the 22nd day of the first month, it was spoken in the house of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Achior, that he should, as he said, avenge himself on all the earth. So he called all his officers to him, and all his nobles, and spoke with them his secret counsel, and decided upon afflicting the whole earth out of his own mouth. Then they decreed to destroy all flesh that did not obey the command from his mouth. And when he had ended his counsel, Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Achior, called Holofernes, the chief captain of his army, who was next to him, and said to him, Thus said the great sovereign, the master of the whole earth, See, you shall go out from my presence, and take men with you that trust in their own strength, 120,000 footmen, and the number of 12,000 horses with their riders. And you shall go against all the western land, because they disobeyed my command. And you shall declare to them that they prepare for me earth and water, and I shall go forth in my wrath against them, and shall cover the whole face of the earth with my feet, with the feet of my army, and I shall give them for a plunder, so that their slain shall fill their valleys and wadis, and the river shall be filled with their dead till it overflows. A wadi, I'd like to say, is a valley or ravine or a dry channel until the rainy season, and then it's wet just for the rainy season, really. So, chapter 2, verse 9, And I shall lead them captive to the farthest part of all the earth. You therefore shall go out beforehand and take for me all their coasts, and if they surrender themselves to you, you shall reserve them for me till the day of their punishment. But concerning those who rebel, do not let your eyes spare them, but put them to the slaughter, and plunder them wherever you go. For as I live, and by the power of my reign, whatever I have spoken, that I shall do by my hand. And take heed that you transgress none of the commands of your master, but accomplish them fully as I have commanded you, and do not delay to do them. Then Holofernes went out from the presence of his master, and called all the governors and captains and the officers of the army of Achior, and he mustered the chosen men for the battle, as his master had commanded him, to 120,000 and 12,000 mounted archers, and he arranged them as a great army is ordered for battle. And he took camels and donkeys for their supplies, a very great number, and sheep and oxen and goats without number for their provisions, and plenty of food for every man of the army, and very much gold and silver out of the sovereign's palace. And then he went forth with all his strength to go before sovereign Nebuchadnezzar in the journey, and to cover all the face of the earth westward with their chariots and horsemen and their chosen footmen. A great number of various countries also came with them like locusts, and like the dust of the earth, for the crowd was without number. Oh dear. And they went forth from Nineveh, 3 days' journey toward the plain of Bechtileth, and pitched from Bechtileth near the mountain which is to the left hand of Upper Cilicia. Then he took all his army, his footmen and horsemen and chariots, and went from there into the hill country, and destroyed Put and Lud, and plundered all the children of Rasis, and the Ishmaelites, who were toward the wilderness to the south of the land of the Chelians. And he passed over Perath, and went through Aram Naharaim, and destroyed all the high cities that were on the river Avronah, till you come to the sea. And he took the borders of Kilkilia, and killed all who resisted him, and came to the borders of Japheth, which were toward the south opposite Arabia. He also surrounded all the children of Midian, and burned up their tents and plundered their sheepfolds. Then he went down into the plain of Damasek in the time of wheat harvest, and burned up all their fields and destroyed their flocks and herds. He also plundered their cities, and utterly laid waste their lands, and smote all their young men with the edge of the sword. Therefore the fear and dread of him fell upon all the inhabitants of the sea coasts who were in Sur and Sidon, and those who dwelt in Sur and Okena, and all who dwelt in Yemnanan, and those who dwelt in Ashdod and Ashkelon feared him greatly. Chapter 3. So they sent ambassadors to him to entreat for peace, saying, See, we the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, the great sovereign, lie before you. Use us as is good in your eyes. Look, our houses and all our places and all our fields of wheat and flocks and herds, and all the camps of our tents lie before you. Use them as it pleases you. See, even our cities and their inhabitants are your servants. Come and deal with them as seems good to you. So the men came to Holofernes and spoke to him after this manner. Then he came down toward the sea coast, both he and his army, and appointed garrisons in the high cities, and took chosen men out of them for help. So they and all the country round about received them with flowers, with dancing, and with timbrels. A timbrel is like a tambourine or similar with little bells on it. Anyway, continuing, chapter 3, verse 8. But he broke down their pillars and cut down their asherim, their idols. But he had decreed to destroy all the mighty ones of the land, that all nations should worship Nebuchadnezzar only, and that all tongues and tribes should call upon him as a mighty one. He also came opposite Israel near Yahudah, opposite the great ridge of Yahudah, and he camped between Geva and Beth Shean, and there he waited a whole month, that he might gather together all the supplies for his army. Chapter 4. Now the children of Israel who dwelt in Yahudah heard all that Holofernes, the chief captain of Nebuchadnezzar's, sovereign of Achior, had done to the nations, and how he had plundered all their temples and brought them to naught. Therefore they were exceedingly afraid of him, and were troubled for Jerusalem and for the Haikal of Yahweh their Elohim. For they had recently returned from the captivity, and all the people of Yahudah were recently gathered together, and the utensils and the altar and the house were kadosh after they were defiled. So they sent to all the coast of Shomeron and Konar, and to Beth Horon and Baal Maim, and Jericho, and to Hovah and Hatzor, and to the valley of Shalem, and took possession beforehand of all the tops of the high mountains, and strengthened the cities that were in them, and laid up food for the supply of battle, for their fields were recently reaped. Also Joachim, the Kohen HaGadol, who was in Jerusalem in those days, wrote to those who dwelt in Bethulia and Beth Hornasthaim, which is opposite Israel toward the open country near to Dothan. We need a map for this. Commanding them to guard the passages of the hill country, for through them there was an entrance into Yahudah, and it was easy to stop those who would come up, because the passage was narrow, for 2 men at the most. And the children of Israel did as Joachim the Kohen HaGadol had commanded them, with the elders of all the people of Israel who dwelt at Jerusalem. Then every man of Israel cried to Elohim with great ardour, and they humbled their beings with great fervency. Both they and their wives and their children and their cattle and every stranger and hired man and their servants bought with money, and put sackcloth upon their loins. So every man and woman and the little children and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the Haichal, and threw ashes upon their heads, and spread out their sackcloth before the faces of Yahweh. They also put sackcloth around the altar, and cried to the Elohim of Israel, all with one accord earnestly, that he would not give their children as prey, and their wives as spoil, and the cities of their inheritance to destruction, and the Kodesh place to defilement and reproach, and for the nations to rejoice at. So Elohim heard their prayers and looked upon their afflictions, for the people fasted many days in all Yahudah and Jerusalem before the Kodesh place of Yahweh Elohim. And Joachim, the Kohen HaGadol, and all the Kohanim that stood before Yahweh, and those who served before Yahweh, had their loins girded with sackcloth, and offered the daily burnt offerings with the vowed and voluntary offerings of the people, and had ashes on their turbans, and cried unto Yahweh and all their strength, with all their strength, that he would look upon all the house of Israel with favour. Chapter 5. Then it was declared to Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Achior, that the children of Israel had prepared for battle, and had shut up the passages of the hill country, and had fortified all the tops of the high hills, and had laid obstructions in the plains, with which he was very wroth, and called all the princes of Moab, and the captains of Ammon, and all the governors of the sea coast, and he said to them, Tell me now, you sons of Canaan, who these people are that dwell in the hill country, and what are the cities that they inhabit, and what is the number of their army, and in what is their power and strength, and what sovereign is appointed over them, or captain of their army, and why have they determined not to come and meet me more than all the inhabitants of the west? Then Achior, the captain of all the sons of Ammon, said, Let my master now hear a word from the mouth of your servant, and I shall declare to you the truth concerning these people who dwell near you and inhabit the hill countries, and no lie shall come out of the mouth of your servant. Okay, so he's not heard of the Israelites before, has he? This should be good. So, chapter 5, verse 6. These people are descended from the Kasdim, and they sojourned before in Aram Naharaim, because they would not follow the mighty ones of their fathers who were in the land of Kasdim. For they left the way of their ancestors and worshipped the Elohim of the Shamayim, the Elohim who they knew. So they cast them out from the face of their mighty ones, and they fled into Aram Naharaim, and sojourned there many days. Then their Elohim commanded them to depart from the place where they sojourned, and to go into the land of Canaan, where they dwelt, and increased in gold and silver, and with very much cattle. But when a famine covered all the land of Canaan, they went down into Mitzrayim and sojourned there while they were provided for, and became a great multitude there, so that none could number their nation. Therefore the sovereign of Mitzrayim rose up against them, the sovereign of Egypt, and dealt cunningly with them, and brought them low in making bricks, and made them slaves. Then they cried out to their Elohim, and he smote all the land of Mitzrayim with incurable plagues, so the Mitzrites cast them out of their sight. And Elohim dried the sea of reeds before them, and brought them to Mount Sinai and Kadesh Barnea, and cast out all who dwelt in the wilderness. So they dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and they destroyed all those of Heshbon by their strength, and passing over the Yarden, they took possession of all the hill country. And they cast out before them the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and the Shechemites, and all the Girgashites, and they dwelt in that land many days. And while they did not sin before their Elohim, they prospered, because the Elohim who hates iniquity was with them. But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many heavy battles, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the high Achior of their Elohim was cast down to the ground, and their cities were taken by their enemies. But now they have returned to their Elohim, and have come up from the places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their Kodesh place is, and have settled in the hill country, for it was isolated. Now, therefore, my master and governor, if there is any mistake against this people, and they sin against their Elohim, let us consider that this shall be their ruin. And let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there is no wickedness in their nation, let my master now pass by, lest their Adon defend them, and their Elohim be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. And when Achior had finished these words, all the people standing around the tent murmured, and the heads of Holofernes and all who dwelt by the sea coast and in Moab said that he should kill him. For they said, We are not afraid of the face of the children of Israel. For see, they are a people who have no strength nor power for a mighty battle. Now therefore, Master Holofernes, we shall go up, and they shall be a prey, to be devoured by your entire army. Ooh. Chapter 6. And when the uproar from the men that were around the council had ceased, Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Achior, said to Achior and all the Moabites before all the company of other nations, And who are you, Achior, and the hired men of Ephraim, that you have prophesied against us today, and have said that we should not go to battle with the people of Israel, because their Elohim should defend them? And who is a mighty one but Nebuchadnezzar? This man has such an ego. So chapter 6, part 3, verse 3. He shall send his power and destroy them from the face of the earth, and their Elohim shall not deliver them. But we, his servants, shall destroy them as one man, for they are not able to sustain the might of our horses. For with them we shall trample them, and their mountains shall be drunk with their blood, and their fields shall be filled with their dead bodies, and their footprints shall not be able to stand before us, for they shall utterly perish, said sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, master of all the earth. For he said, none of my words shall come to naught. And you, Achior, a hired man of Ammon, who has spoken these words on the day of your punishment, shall see my face no more from this day until I take vengeance on this nation that came out of Mitzrayim. And then the sword of my army and the number of those who serve me shall pierce your sides, and you shall fall among their slain when I return. Just for telling him the truth and trying to protect them. Oh, now, before my servants shall take you back into the hill country, and shall place you in one of the cities of the passages, and you shall not perish till you are destroyed with them. And if you persuade yourself in your mind that they shall be taken, do not let your face fall. I have spoken it, and none of my words shall come to naught. Then Holofernes commanded his servants, who waited on his tent, to take Achior and bring him to Bethulia, and deliver him into the hands of the children of Israel. So his servants took him and brought him out of the camp into the plain, and they went from the midst of the plain into the hill country, and came to the springs below Bethulia. And when the men of the city saw them, they took up their weapons and went out of the city to the top of the hill, and every man that used a sling kept them from coming up by slinging stones against them. However, having approached hidden below the hill, they bound Achior and threw him down and left him at the foot of the hill and returned to their master. Charming. But the Israelites descended from their city and came to him and released him and brought him to Bethulia and presented him to the governors of the city, who in those days were Uzziah, the son of Micah, and the tribe of Shimon, and Havriah, the son of Othniel, and Jeremiah, the son of Malchiel. And they called together all the elders of the city, and all their youth ran together, and their women to the assembly. And they put Achior in the midst of all their people. Then Uzziah asked him about what was done, and he answered and related to them the words of the council of Holofernes, and all the words that he had spoken in the midst of the princes of Achior, and all that Holofernes had spoken proudly against the house of Israel. Then the people fell down and worshipped Elohim, and cried out to Elohim, saying, O Yahweh of the Shamayim, see their pride, and show favour on our humble nation, and look upon the face of those that are kadosh to you this day. Then they confronted Achior and praised him greatly, and Uzziah took him out of the assembly to the house and made a feast for the elders, and they called on the Elohim of Israel all that night for help. Chapter 7. The next day Holofernes commanded all his army and all his people who had come to take part, that they should remove their encampment against Bethulia, to take the ascents of the hill country beforehand, and to fight against the children of Israel. Then their mighty men removed their camps that day, and the army of the men of battle was 170,000 footmen and 12,000 horsemen, besides the baggage and other footmen that were among them, a very great crowd, stomping crowd. And they camped in the valley near Bethulia by the spring, and they spread themselves wide over Dothan. even to Baal Maim, and in length from Bethulia to Yokneam, which is opposite Yisrael. Now when the children of Yisrael saw the number of them, they were greatly troubled, and each one said to his neighbour, Now these men shall lick up the face of the earth, for neither the high mountains, nor the valleys, nor the hills are able to bear their weight. Then every man took up his weapons of battle, and when they had kindled fires on their towers, they remained and watched all that night. But on the second day Holofernes led out all his horsemen in the sight of the children of Israel, who were in Bethulia, and scouted the ascents to the city, and came to the springs of their waters, and took them, and placed garrisons of men of battle over them. And he himself returned to his army. Then all the chiefs of the children of Esau came to him, and all the governors of the people of Moab, and the captains of the sea coast, and said, Let our master now hear a word, that there shall not be an overthrow of your army. For this people of the children of Israel do not trust in their spears, but in the height of the mountains in which they dwell, because it is not easy to ascend to the tops of their mountains. Now therefore, my master, do not fight against them in battle array, and not so much as one man of your army shall perish. Remain in your camp and keep all the men of your army, and let your servants take possession of the spring of water, which issues from the foot of the mountain. For all the inhabitants of Bethulia get their water there, so thirst shall kill them, and they shall give up their city. And we and our people shall go up to the tops of the mountains that are near, and shall lay siege to them, to watch that none go out of the city. So they and their wives and their children shall be consumed with fire, and before the sword comes against them, they shall be overthrown in the streets where they dwell. Thus you shall render them an evil reward, because they rebelled and did not meet you peaceably. And these words pleased Holofernes and all his servants, and he gave orders to do as they had spoken. So the camp of the children of Ammon departed, and with them 5,000 of Achior, and they encamped in the valley, and seized the waters and the springs of water of the children of Israel. Then the children of Esau went up, and the children of Ammon, and encamped in the hill country opposite Dothan. And they sent some of them toward the south, and toward the east opposite Akrabah, which is near Cusi, which is on the Wadi Mokmer, and the rest of the army of Ashur encamped in the plain, and covered the face of the whole land, and their tents and supply wagons were camped, forming a very great crowd. Then the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh their Elohim, because their hearts failed, and all their enemies had surrounded them, and there was no way to escape from among them. So all the army of Ashur surrounded them 34 days, both their footmen, chariots, and horsemen, so that all the containers of water of the inhabitants of Bethulia were empty, and the cisterns were emptied, and they had no water to drink their fill for 1 day. And they gave them drink by measure. Therefore their young children were disheartened, and their women and young men fainted for thirst, and fell down in the streets of the city and by the passages of the gates, and there was no longer any strength in them. Then all the people assembled to Uzziah and to the chief of the city, both young men and women and children, and cried with a loud voice, and said before all the elders, Elohim, be judge between us and you. For you have done us great injury, in that you have not required peace from the children of Achior. For now we have no helper, and Elohim has sold us into their hands, that we should be cast down before them with thirst and great destruction. Now therefore summon them to you, and deliver the whole city for plunder, and to the men of Holofernes, and to all his army, for it is better for us to be plundered by them, than to die for thirst. For we shall be his servants, that our beings may live, and not see the death of our infants before our eyes, nor our wives, nor our children die. We take the Shamayim and the earth to witness against you, and our Elohim and Adon of our fathers, who punish us according to our sins and the sins of our fathers, that he does not do as we have said this day. Then there was great weeping with one accord in the midst of the assembly, and they cried out to Yahweh Elohim with a loud voice. Then Uzziah said to them, Brothers, be of good courage, let us yet endure 5 days, in which time Yahweh our Elohim may turn his favour toward us, for he shall not utterly forsake us. And if these days pass, and no help comes for us, I shall do according to your word. And he dispersed the people, each one of their own watch, to their own watch, and they went to the walls and towers of the city, and sent the women and children into their houses, and in the city they were brought very low. Chapter 8. Now at that time Yahudith heard of this, who was the daughter of Merari, the son of Utz, the son of Joseph, the son of Uzziel, the son of Elkaiah, the son of Hananiah, the son of Gidon, the son of Rephaim, the son of Ahitub, the son of Elihu, the son of Eliab, the son of Nathanael, the son of Shalumiel, the son of Surishadai, the son of Yisrael, and Menashe was her husband, of her tribe and relatives who died in the barley harvest. For as he stood overseeing those who bound sheaves in the field, the heat overcame his head, and he fell on his bed and died in the city of Bethulia. And they buried him with his fathers in the field between Dothan and Baal-meon. So Yahudith was a widow in her house 3 years and 4 months, and she made herself a tent on the top of her house, and put sackcloth on her loins, and wore her widow's garments. And she fasted all the days of her widowhood, except the Shabbat and evenings of the Shabbat, and the new moons, and the evenings of the new moons, and the festivals and appointed times of the house of Yisrael. She also had a lovely face, and very good looking, and her husband Menashe had left her gold and silver, and male and female servants, and cattle and lands, and she maintained them, and no one spoke evil of her, for she greatly revered Elohim. Now when she heard the evil words of the people against the governor, when they fainted for lack of water, for Yahudith had heard all the words that Uzziah had spoken to them, and that he had sworn to deliver the city to Achior after 5 days. Then she sent her female servant who governed all that she had, to call Uzziah and Habriah and Heremiah, the elders of the city. And they came to her, and they said to them, Hear me now, you governors of the inhabitants of Bethulia, for your words that you have spoken before the people this day are not right regarding this oath which you made and pronounced between Elohim and you. and have promised to deliver the city to our enemies unless Yahweh turns to help you within these days. And now, who are you to try Elohim this day and stand in place of Elohim among the children of men? And now, try Yahweh Elohim, but you shall never know any matter. For you cannot find the depth of the heart of man, neither can you perceive that which he thinks. How then can you search out Elohim, who has made all these, and know his mind, or understand his purpose? No, my brothers, do not provoke Yahweh our Elohim to anger, for if he does not help us within these 5 days, he has power to defend us when he desires, even every day, or to destroy us before our enemies. Do not bind the counsel of Yahweh our Elohim, for Elohim is not like mankind, that he could be threatened, neither is he like the Son of Man, that he should hesitate. Therefore, let us wait for deliverance from him, and call upon him to help us, and he shall hear our voice if it pleases him. For none has arisen in our age, neither is there any in these days, neither tribe, nor family, nor people, nor city among us, who worship mighty ones made with hands, as it was before this, for which cause our fathers were given to the sword, and for a spoil, and fell greatly before our enemies. But we know no other mighty ones, therefore we trust that he shall not despise us, nor any of our nation. For if we are captured, all Yahudah shall lie waste, and our Kodesh place shall be plundered, and he shall require its defilement by our mouth. And the slaughter of our brothers, and the captivity of the country, and the desolation of our inheritance, he shall turn upon our heads among the Gentiles, wherever we are in bondage. And we shall be an insult and a reproach to all those who possess us. For our slavery shall not be directed to favour, but Yahweh our Elohim shall turn it to dishonour. Now therefore, brothers, let us show an example to our brothers, because their hearts depend on us, and the Kodesh place and the house of the altar rest upon us. Moreover, let us give thanks to Yahweh our Elohim, who tries us, even as he did our fathers. Remember what he did to Abraham, and how he tried Yitzchak, and what happened to Yaakov in Aram Naharaim of Syria, when he kept the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. For he has not tried us in the fire as he did them to search their hearts, neither has he taken vengeance upon us, but Yahweh scourges those who come near to him, to admonish them. Then Uzziah said to her, all that you have spoken with a good heart, and there is none that would refute your words. For this is not the first day in which your wisdom has been shown, but from the beginning of your days all the people have known your understanding, because the inclination of your heart is good. But the people were very thirsty, and compelled us to do for them as we have spoken, and to bring an oath upon ourselves, which we are unable to break. Therefore now pray for us, because you are a righteous woman, and Yahweh shall send us rain to fill our cisterns, and we shall no longer be weary. Then Yahudith said to them, hear me, I shall do that which shall go throughout all generations to the children of our nation. Tonight you shall stand in the gate, and I shall go out with my female servant, and within the days that you have promised to deliver the city to our enemies, Yahweh shall visit Israel by my hand. But do not ask about my actions, for I shall not declare it to you till that which I do is completed. Then Uzziah and the rulers said to her, Go in peace, and Yahweh Elohim go before you to take vengeance on our enemies. So they returned from the tent and went to their watches. Oh, that's it. End of chapter 8. That's so exciting. We're going to stop here for now because the next bit's chapter 9, where Judith states a beautiful prayer. And it's halfway through this short book. Very good book. Another very tense account of scriptural events, reminding us of trust, love and patience among all else. Oh, thank you for joining us here today for these words. And thank you, Abba, for washing and bathing us, for holding our hands, picking us up when we fall and planting us in your delightful garden. Thank you for residing in our hearts and walking with us every step of the way. And thank you for your peace, your love, your kindness and integrity, for all the confirmations you gift us with every day. You are the way. You're the truth and the life, the high. Help us to guard your word and to pitch our tents with you every day you make for us to live in. Dear Father, you are my rock. You're my light. Thank you for waking us up to you and giving us a family and friends with a heart for Yeshua HaMashiach Adonai. Through Yeshua in Yahweh we pray. Yahweh Kodesh Elohim, most dedicated, Yahweh Echad. Amen. Okay. Hope to see you all for the next half of this delightful little book. See you soon here or there. Onward and upward. Avarim and Mishpachah. Much love and shalom to you all. Yirei Yahweh.